it kind of leaves off there. But luckily for us, not only are we aware there's more under the surface, we get YouTube.
Yes, we love corporations. And today, we're going to talk to you about the glory of our Lord and Savior, YouTube.
This episode is brought to you by...
Welcome to Casuals of Runeterra, Part 4 of our Star Guardian special. I'm your host, Ryan, here with your other host, Hetch.
You know, it's funny when we're already laughing. It's just like, oh, here's more content, and we're barely scratching the surface. Let's go.
As in the previous episode, if you've made it this far, pat yourself on the back and give yourself a golden star, because you're not almost there yet. There's plenty more coming, but we're going to start with housekeeping to make you feel comfortable. Something you're used to. You can listen to us everywhere. Contact us at podcastcore@gmail.com. If you got something you want to say to us, visit us at podcastcore.com for all of our info. Follow us on any platform you prefer, or all the platforms, because that helps us with discovery. And then leave a like, comment, or short review. But the easiest way is to tell a friend to bubble, 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 pop, bubble, bubble, pop, pop, by listening to the Casuals of Runeterra podcast.
I refuse to express how angry that made me, so that I can refuse to acknowledge that I recognize it. And if anyone recognizes what he just did, you're a degenerate just like we are. And we love you. But I'm done with him.
Dude, I took so much pleasure in writing that because I knew he wouldn't be paying attention enough when it started. Let's just hop into it. Let's not dwell in his misery. So what are we doing in this part? So in the previous 3 parts, first one, we touched on the bios of the original group. Then we talked about the slumber party, and followed with the bios of the other group. And now we're here, right? We had some music videos in there as well. There's a bunch of stuff. At some point, we're going to lose track of what we talked about. So do us a favor. If this is your first episode, go back and listen to part 1, 2, and 3, because you're going to be lost.
There's a lot of content here, and like I said earlier, we're just at the top, so there's gonna be more. So go ahead, listen to them. We'll catch you up, and then we'll keep going with this episode.
Yeah, we're gonna keep the train going. So we're gonna hop straight into it. So today we're gonna be talking about the stuff that came out in like 2019. So fast forward a couple years, and now we have another short story along with a very well animated video, which I'm always hesitant to call a music video. There is music in it. It's more of a cinematic type thing with music in the background.
Yeah.
But we won't get into the logistics of all that.
Yeah, this isn't like the same as like Burning Bright. Like there's the music is kind of, there for ambiance, whereas Burning Bright, the song is the show.
Exactly.
But this has got like a lot in it too, so it's a fun one to cover.
Let's start into it. Let's see if we can move it a clip and try to save you guys some time so you can get into the next part that's coming after this.
Oh, boy.
So we're going to start with the short story, which is the Twilight Star, and like all good stories, in 3 parts. So part 1, we start with Lux and Sarah walking, and they're in uniform, in their Star Guardian uniform, and they're surveying the perimeter of this park. And during this time, standard Lux shenanigans, she's rapid firing off a bunch of questions about, hey, where's the rest of the team? Why is it just you here helping us out? And MF is like, all right, well, Ezreal's in detention, which is hilarious. So Raka is working overtime at Pantheon's Pastries, which is great.
I love that now that is like officially canon somewhere, because that is such a great Pantheon skin. And now it's like, okay, yeah, it's just as canon as like a Graggy Ice for Gragas's beer.
And it works so well with like the new Runeterra stuff we have because he's so associated with Targon. And like they were at Camp Targon. Like the way they built this is very well done ahead of time because this was in the past. And then she
Yeah.
said Syndra's at a late astronomy class at the university, or at least that's what she says. Dun dun dun. We don't trust Syndra around here.
Yeah. And we do cover that in our previous episode. So, we did say go listen to it. And if you haven't yet, we weren't kidding. Go listen to it. We do cover that a bit.
Yeah, and remember when I was kind of confused when I saw the university thing. And if you look at the bios, they're listed by their year, right? And one confusing thing is because this is so influenced by anime, usually it's like a 3-year setup for high school, but there's fourth years mentioned here, which is more of an American Western setup.
Right.
So it's kind of this in-between space, like we've mentioned in the previous episode, where because Jana and Syndra are technically like fourth years and they're the older ones, they're in between that college and high school, like senior age.
I mean, really, all this means is that we still have no idea exactly how old they're supposed to be in this
Oh yeah, because like
story.
some of them aren't human technically.
Yeah.
So like,
And it's like, because we know Poppy and Lulu are just going to be like ancient. Soraka is legitimately like super ancient.
yeah,
They keep mentioning Jana is like old. We don't know. We don't know. We're guessing. Bear with us.
yeah. So as she's firing off these rapid questions, she answers them, and Sarah never does mention Ari's name, but of course Lux gets nervous and blurts it out and kind of reels it back in because she's afraid of looking obsessed. So she changes the subject. And this is right when they make it to the park where Jana, Poppy, Jinx, and Lulu are kind of just hanging out, right? They're prepped for a mission, but they're not sure what.
Yeah, they're in armor, weapons out, playing on a merry-go-round because, well, there's nothing here, so hurry up and wait, but we might as well have fun while we do it. And this is kind of a continuation of the slumber party atmosphere of just, like Lux's team, they do get along with each other, and they still act like kids overall. And Miss Fortune kind of notices that too, and she ends up kind of touching on it, and it was like, hey, y'all always been like this?
Yes, they have. So the reason they're here, which Lux kind of mentions, is that Lulu during a physics class with Poppy got bored and was doodling some stuff. And because of the previous episodes that we talked about their previous adventures, Lux is taking Lulu's drawings a lot more seriously. And this specific drawing has a bunch of circles on it that bring her some concern. So we find out that this park they're at is Valorant City, city's metro park, which is probably at like the city center. So it's important. And afterwards, they get kind of interrupted where Lulu points out, oh, I can see the Twilight Star. And then starts some banter about, well, it's not dark enough to see stars. This is your imagination. And there's also no such thing as a Twilight Star. And they said it's not like camp where, you could see things. We're in the middle of the city. It's not dark enough yet. And there's back and forth, and Lulu's insisting because, she can care less. And then once they arrive is where Hetch mentioned that Sarah's like, are you guys always this like goofy? Like, it's like it's Looney Tunes over here.
And she does also kind of dour the mood there too, because she mentions that it's an innocence, like because we touch on in part 3 as far as the bios of Ari's team that Miss Fortune and Ari specifically, they're grizzled war veterans, aka they've seen some shit.
Yeah.
And the more that we get to see their dialogue, the more that they kind of reveal that there's like there has been loss. So for Sarah at this point, it's like you guys are just so innocent, like y'all are carefree kids, and I'm not a kid anymore. Not just like in age, just like I've seen too much shit. I'm just looking at the perimeter and I'm ready for somebody to die.
Yeah, she's taking it that seriously. And after that innocence, once again, that comment, Lux reads into it, right? And she starts jumping to conclusions, thinking she may mean she's like Ari, but she doesn't believe that. She doesn't have the confidence to do that. And she lets that out loud, and Sarah laughs, denying that. Like, no, that's not what I was thinking. But she won't really say who exactly. She just mentions that she's innocent, she's too loyal for her own good, and she's kind of a dreamer. And that's a mix of the old, like, personalities of the old three members of her team that she lost, quote unquote. And that's referring to some members that we'll talk about towards the end when we get to the music video coverage.
Yeah, and this is also important because Lux, throughout all the previous stories so far, has been struggling with the concept of being a good and strong leader. She has a lot of self doubt. So, being compared to someone that she views as a goal, this is someone that she can mimic to become a better leader, and being told by someone on that team that she has qualities that reminds her of Ari, for Lux, that's a big deal. And as far as with this, like, that statement combined with Lux's overall anxiety and stuff just sends the brain racing, just racing. So Lux gets trapped in her own head with all of this. Like, what happened to the team? Why do I remind you of Ari? What happened to the people that I remind you of? Does that mean I'm
Yeah.
gonna die? What's going on?
Yeah, and this is all interrupted again by Lulu, which is a common theme, where she's like, "Look, it's my wish," right? And everybody's like, "What are you talking about?" First it was Twilight Stars, now it's Wish, and then suddenly Lux starts to notice the atmosphere becomes like dreamlike and kind of distorted, and there's these twinkling lights that are hovering above where the team is sitting, and then they notice it's starting to get dark, but not like normally, really fast. Uh, and then Sarah yells out that these aren't stars, those are actually bubbles. And we'll talk about the importance of that in the next section. But as this is happening, Poppy has a bubble coming towards her because she's the one talking. And he's mentioned that it's sound related, and she dodges it. And then Jinx begins laughing and burst out in this, her guffaw kind of very loud demeanor. And all these bubbles start rushing towards her. So Lux, props to her here, without thinking, acts immediately. She throws her staff and shields Jinx and Poppy. That's a call out to her move in game. And the bubbles bounce off the barriers, and when they do, they notice there's this black mist, this dark mist, and these fluttering black shapes around it.
Yeah, and as far as, like, before we dive into any significance, this is kind of a callback a little bit to the slumber party, because we've got like, at the slumber party, though it wasn't a straight on bubble, this was the similar behavior that the paper fortune teller that Lulu made, that Ezreal, accidentally put a demon into because of a portal.
Yeah.
Like, that, this is that same kind of behavior, except now it's a swarm. It's a swarm, and it's basically blackening out the sky. So it's going to be a little bit different than just killing one little tiny thing. So now it is go time.
And Jinx says so. She yells, "Let's pop these bad boys." And then Sarah immediately jumps into action, right? Because remember, grizzled veteran, she doesn't have time for words. Starts popping off at these bubbles, and Jana begins using her wind powers, as we saw her in Camp Targon. She rises in the air, starts summoning wind, and actually brings all the bubbles to one location. And as she does this, there's this high pitched, like, laughing emanating from the bubbles that stops. And then you get this kind of groaning, annoyed noise, which is like echoing around the park. And imagine this is like a big park in New York City, right? It's the main park.
Yeah. I like to imagine it also that it's like the kind of like each and every single bubble is serving like a speaker. So it's not necessarily loud in the sense that it's happening at a volume where it's covering the whole park. It's just
Yeah.
that there's so many speakers everywhere coming out at a normal volume that it sounds like it's echoing all over the place. And because, again, it's part of the reason that the sky's darkening too, is because what is all this crap? They're not
Yeah.
falling stars. It's coming straight at us and we can't see anything. But it's a really cool nod too, as far as just like the human emotion behind it too, because it's the laughing into annoyance, like not even into anger, just into annoyance of just like, fine, here we go.
Yeah. And then something disgusting happens. So in between these bubbles, a portal pops up, it appears, and long tendrils followed by a gelatinous, evil, half octopus, demonic jellyfish on the other half, just a blob of nasty goop crawls out. And I want to stop here for a second. I don't know if
Uh-oh.
I mentioned this, we've done a lot of episodes, but in real life, this is literally my fear because I have a fear of octopuses. I have a fear of squids. I have a fear of jellyfish because I don't like tendrils. And this is all of that plus hell. Like they just threw the
Yeah.
demon inside of it.
Not
Like
not in this
this is the worst fear for Ryan.
it's not in this episode, but I think you touched on it a little bit when we recorded Alawi.
Yeah.
But Alawi, at least it's like spiritual and stuff. This is physical. It's just
This is
physical
real.
tentacles that are coming to get you, buddy.
And then the way it behaves when it comes out. So after it comes out, Sarah yells, take it down immediately. And that rushes for her. So this thing is responding to sound as well. And then Lux tries to intercept it with her beam, but before it reaches Sarah's location, it dodges behind some bubbles. And then unknowingly, Lulu rushed in, knocking Sarah out of the way. And while Sarah's rolling, she's able to get some shots off, some fires, but one of the bubbles slips through the grouping that Jonna has and ends up touching Lulu's cheek and popping. And then Lux dives to catch a now unconscious Lulu.
Yeah, and this is we know that this is something that Lux is like just absolutely terrified for because of the self-doubt that she has as far as being a leader, but also in our part 2 where we cover I'm blanking on the name of the story now.
Don't worry.
Yeah, but when that
Targon.
opens yeah, that one opens up with Lux dreaming as far as like being in darkness, but the worst of the dreams is when all of her friends are a part of it and their light disappears. Which is also something that's covered in Burning Bright, the music video. So we now have a very anxious teenager who does not handle anxiety well, now only acting upon adrenaline and fight or flight, trying to save Lulu as her worst nightmare is coming true.
Yeah,
So-
Lulu, and I want to make a comment that Lulu feels almost like when you look at fantasy and other stories, almost like an Oracle style character where you can't really leave them out of the battle because you need them for certain things, but if you leave them alone, bad things could also happen, right? So Lulu has to be at these battles, even though to us we're like, just leave her out of harm's way because she's only a target. But they have to have her there because this could happen wherever she's at.
It's also a part of like her character too, because like even outside of Star Guardians, Lulu is very eccentric, and kind of just goes with the flow. So for her character here, the going with the flow is going with my friends, and my friends want to go to the place where I was drawing, so I wanted to go there anyways. Haha. Sure. But I kind of a little upset that like in all of these stories so far, Lulu has been like the damsel in distress because like, Lulu is just such a chaotic creature that it's like that feels wrong to an extent, while also that like in none of these do they mention that Lulu's fighting, so it should just feel so every time it feels like an escort mission in a video game.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I had a premonition, quick, save me.
Save me. And it's just like no, just pull out Pix, polymorph something, and have
where's Pix? That's the other question. It's like, all this shit. Where's Pix at?
Where's Pix been? Yeah, it's like, come on. I did not go through the trenches and die to AP Lulu mids over and over again for like 2 years straight to see Lulu just do nothing in these comics.
So Jinx finishes off the remaining bubbles. Another portal ends up opening up and it's emitting that maniacal laughter again that they heard before, and the monster escapes through that. And this kind of takes us to the part 3 or the end of the story, where we check on Lulu and she is breathing, but she's experiencing some kind of like weird fever dream, and that can be anything, right? Considering the weirdness of these portals, the monster, the bubbles, and then as Hetch just mentioned, Lulu's eccentricness, the maps, the occurrences, the Twilight Star, all that no one knows, and Lux just becomes more anxious because of that.
Yeah, and this is also just like there's no information for Lux here because despite the fact that we know what's going on thanks to, kind of getting more background information from the bios for Miss Fortune and Ari and our understanding of the genre overall, none of this has been explained to Lux. Lux has no idea about any of this, and we're reading everything from her perspective. So she has no idea what these bubbles are. She has no idea, if Lulu's dead or just asleep. And if it's just asleep, is this like what Star Guardian magic does? And then, while this kind of fast forwards into Lux trying to help Lulu here, and Lulu in her sleep is saying she's on her way. And with that, Lux constantly has her brain running at 100 miles an hour. So she's like, who could she be? Who is she? Who would be on the way here? Oh, I got it. It's Ari. It has to be Ari. And Sarah says, no, it's not. And it's like, and Lex is like, no, of course it's her. It's got to be her. You'll call her, won't you, Sarah? And Sarah's like, I can't. And it's like, wait, why? We're not talking right now. Sarah, it's more important than that. And then Sarah says, the slumber party. And then that's it. Lux still has no information. It's like, I ask a question and you give me 3 more questions.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no satisfying answer. All we know now, which is a big reveal, is that wasn't that Ari ditched the party. She was planning on coming. She just never showed up. And that kind of changes, Lux's outlook on the situation. But the main part here where it wraps up is after this back and forth, she sees Sarah kind of turn away. And before she sees she looks worried and concerned for the first time since she's met her. We're in part 4 of the special, and this is the first time she sees her concern. So then Lux's mind starts racing, thinking, okay, well, where's Ari? What is coming for us? And is she strong enough to handle it and to guide her team to handle it as well? And that's where the story leaves off.
Yeah, and as far as because for Lux, she just finishes this chapter as far as only having questions about what's going on and not having any information, but especially for us as the reader, we are aware that there is definitely something deeper going on behind the scenes. Miss Fortune knows more than she's letting on. And because of this, and we know that not only because Miss Fortune is aware that whoever Lulu is talking about is not Ari, and whatever happened between Miss Fortune and Ari, she's not letting on. Sarah's not telling us at all. It's just that oh, well, she was supposed to come but didn't, and we're not talking. And so it's like that high school drama at the worst time that it could be happening. But the bottom line is there's more beneath the surface, and Miss Fortune knows more than Lux does, but won't tell her. And it kind of leaves off there. But luckily for us, not only are we aware there's more under the surface, we get YouTube.
Yes, we love corporations. And today, we're going to talk to you about the glory of our Lord and Savior, YouTube.
This episode is brought to you by...
But we're talking about the light and shadow video that we mentioned up top. So, as all of the content we give you guys, when it comes to the coverage side of it, we still want you, if you enjoy it, go read these things, right? Go seek them out. And with this video specifically, go watch this damn thing. Because you gotta remember, this was in 2019, right? So this is pre-Arcane. You still had, listen, Riot's been on the top of their animation game, but this was peak at that point. Because of the combination of good music, good cinematography, good direction for how the work is done and how the action scenes are shown. And it tells a really solid story in that space that actually answers a lot of questions from the story, which is why we put it here. So go watch it first and then come back. So...
Yeah. Wait, give them the 5 seconds.
Oh, give them the 5 seconds.
Give them the 5 seconds to watch it. Okay.
Actually, we're going to wait the full video.
Oh, yeah, yeah. In complete silence. Do not cut any of this.
It's just burning bright playing in the background as they watch it.
Yeah, while it's happening, we just interrupt the silence every now and then. So what'd you eat today? But yeah, now that you've watched Light and Shadow.
Yeah, now that you've watched it, So the video opens up. So we're gonna tell you what you watched. So the video opens up with Star Guardian Zaya chasing slash battling a Star Guardian Nico. And it looks like she's trying to escape rather than actually fight. It's more of like a defensive fighting thing. But Zaya is relentless and it looks fucking sick. It's like a pursuit type situation. And during this exchange, the bit of, disconnect is Rakan because he's rushing in to protect Zaya during these moments, but he's not necessarily attacking Nico. And we're like, okay, what the fuck is going on? This is a mess. It's hectic. The music is beautiful, but it's so cool to watch.
Yeah. Not to mention that, like, especially coming off of what we've had from Star Guardians up to this point,
Yeah.
this is, it's like, wait a second. That's none of the 10 members that we've talked about so far. And so then it's like, oh, that's Nico. That's got to be Zaya. I recognize like her E ability, and it's like, what is happening? So like that's a wild ride. It is notable though, as far as like if you like as far as for me, I had to watch it like a couple times before that like actually kicked in. But not only or is it two Star Guardians fighting each other, but their outfits are different. Like Zaya
Yeah.
and Rakan are in like a dark purple or black outfit, whereas Nico is in like the white Star Guardian look
Yep.
that we are used to seeing. So that's noticeable too, which only raises more questions as to why Rakan isn't also trying to kill Nico, because it's like,
Yeah.
oh well, they got team uniforms. But he's not trying. He's not playing to win.
That's a great way to put it. So during this scene, you have them using a bunch of the abilities that you know from the game. Obviously, callbacks. You got to do it. And then at one point, while Nico's running up this Coliseum-looking space, we get a shot of like these stars, and it shows the original Ari group, which is Ari, Miss Fortune, Rakan, Zaya, and Nico. And that's like, oh shit, that's a cool callback there, right? And right when Nico thinks she got away, she's somehow back in the center of that room where the fight started, standing next to the statue that's surrounded by this kind of decrepit cage.
Yeah. And like is this at the point where she was able to get the drop on Zaya? Have we gotten there yet? Because I know like that happens a little bit.
The drop on
Or-
Zaya.
Um,
You
never
mean
mind.
when she does the clone thing?
Yeah.
Oh, this is
I-
past that.
Okay, yeah, because like the as far as like before getting teleported to that room, like
Yeah.
she does trick Zaya with the clone and gets a hidden.
Yeah.
Which is the only act of aggression that Nico shows up to this point. So we have Rakan tending to a Zaya that looks like she got the wind knocked out of her. And then Nico just comes back after seeing Ari and her team, and it's just like, what the hell happened?
Yeah, what's going on, right? And she's confused in the middle, and then we get the reveal of a corrupted looking Zoe pop up, and she opens up a portal bringing Zaya and Rakan to the location, and Rakan looks tired, confused as well. But Zaya is about that action. It's on site. So she immediately she goes straight for Nico, does one of her moves, and at the same time, Zoe's doing her move from the other side. Nico's kind of surrounded, and she pops her ult, right? Does her big ball thing, comes down, and to avoid the damage, well, Zaya doesn't really try to avoid the damage because Rakan's there to protect her. So Rakan dashes in and uses buys his shield. It knocks him out, and Zoe goes through a portal so she's not hit by the blast.
Right. Which this is like such a cool scene because like this is as far as when it came out, again, we have to mention that a lot of this is for selling skins. So a bunch of this is getting to see at least like the vision that Riot had for how these skins are going to look in game with these abilities, because these are all abilities that you can cast as these characters in game. So it's like, that's super cool. But it's also nice to see as far as like we still get this continuation of like the different color palettes between all of these battling characters, because up to this point we've only ever had just Star Guardians. Like the closest to any conflict that we've had between other Star Guardians
Yeah.
was Miss Fortune putting a gun down Lux's eye hole for a second before saving Lux's life. Or, you know, it's like that was the closest thing we had to violence, and now we've just got Star Guardians duking it out. I mean going hard.
Yeah,
So
it's good.
it's super cool. Like the animation in this part is so much fun.
Yeah, so then after this moment, the ground under them begins to crack under this cage, and it disappears into essentially this galactic battlefield where Zoe reappears and immediately starts attacking Nico. Nico's still on the defensive, but she kind of loses here. And then they go back to a grounded area, and with all three down, Zoe begins to corrupt Nico, which is an ability we saw happen earlier to Zaya before Rakan healed her in the same video. And the corruption is happening, but then this crack of light appears and shines on Nico and reverses the effect. And Zoe turns around like, what the hell's going on? And then suddenly Ari breaks through the wall holding the 3 broken star shards from the music video we talked about earlier, if you listen to our other parts. And she's not pleased. Nico kind of looks hopeful now. Like you can see her eyes get big. I mean, they're big. They get bigger. And then Ari looks determined to solve whatever problems in front of her. And Zoe looks pissed. And that's where the video leaves off.
And this is great because now we've got like a bunch of different connections as far as what happened in the park with Lux and her team. Because we don't know exactly for sure as far as what was attacking them or who was behind the attack, but we now have an idea of like, yeah, we knew that the world of the Star Guardians was bigger than just the 10 of them. And we knew that Ari and Miss Fortune had a history with a previous team, and it did not end well. And it's like, so what happened? Did they all die? Nope. We're getting some new skins is what would happen. And this is also one of the reasons why Ari is just like so arm's length with everybody outside of her team, because it's like, no, I've got some stuff to fix. I have some problems to deal with. So you stay over there. Stay over there. Stay away from me, because the more Star Guardians there are, the more problems that we're going to have.
Yeah, we say this in every episode. This was all to sell skins, and it's gotten out of hand because now we're at the end of the episode. And this is the part where we tell you, hey, you're technically caught up, but there's more. And there's a lot more. So, as we promised, we'll keep doing it until we cover all this shit.
Yeah, this is, I mean, this would have been like the finishing point if we were recording this, say, like 3 months ago. This would be us fully caught up. And it's not just that there's new Star Guardian content now, and with new Star Guardian content on the horizon, there's a ton of new Star Guardian content. Like, the more that we've started looking into it, the more that Ryan and I have just looked at each other like, oh boy, we've got a lot of reading to do.
I love how you combined the two and said Stardian content, and we're going to say that from now on. Because, all right, can we copyright a term that's copyrighted?
All right, so
can we trademark a term that's a butchering of?
All right, so when we go into our next story, it's going to be Stardians Part 1.
No, that's how we'll break up the content. But, you know, as always, thanks for making it this far. I mean, Part 4, that's an achievement in yourself. We can't give you physical achievements, so we can just tell you thank you. So thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with the next Stardian episode.
Don't worry, we'll do all the reading for you guys because we love you. All right, take care, everybody.